Nah. The moment I heard my brother's voice on the phone, I knew something was wrong. Not because of what he said. Because of what he didn't say. Mom's in the ICU, he told me. Flat as reading a grocery list. Thought you should know. Then he hung up. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, still in my scrubs from a 12-hour shift, my coffee going cold on the counter. I had been on my feet since 5 in the morning. I had held a 70-year-old man's hand while the doctor told him his wife wasn't going to make it. I had smiled through all of it because that was my job. That was who I was. The one who showed up. The one who stayed. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Mercy General without changing my clothes. My mother was in room 1114. She looked so small in that bed. The monitors beeped steadily and a nurse I didn't recognize adjusted her IV line. I sat down beside her and took her hand, and I didn't let go for 3 hours. My brother never came that night. Neither did my sister. I want to tell you that surprised me. I want to tell you I couldn't believe it. But if I'm being honest, really honest, I had stopped being surprised by my siblings a long time ago. My name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old. I'm a registered nurse at a hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And for the past 6 years, I have been the only one of my mother's 3 children who actually acted like her child. My brother Daniel is 38. He lives 40 minutes away in a house my mother helped him buy when his first business failed. He has a boat he takes out every summer and a timeshare in Cancun he visits twice a year. He calls my mother on her birthday sometimes if he remembers. My sister Vanessa is 35. She moved to Phoenix 8 years ago and never really moved back, not even in her mind. She sends gift cards for Christmas. She posts throwback photos of our mother on Instagram, with long captions about how much she loves her. She has not visited in 2 years. And then there's me. I gave up a position at a hospital in Seattle to come back to Columbus when my mother was first diagnosed. Stage 2 breast cancer, the doctor said. Treatable, but she would need support. She would need someone close. I remember the phone call I made to Daniel. I laid out everything, the treatment schedule, the side effects, the fact that Mom couldn't drive herself to chemo. I asked him to share the responsibility with me. He said he had a lot going on. I called Vanessa. She cried on the phone, which I appreciated. Then she said she just couldn't uproot her life right now. But she would absolutely help with expenses. She sent $200 that first month. Then nothing after that. So I moved back. I took a position at Mercy General that paid less than Seattle would have. I found an apartment 10 minutes from my mother's house. I went to every single chemotherapy appointment. I held her hair back. I learned to cook the bland foods her stomach could tolerate. I sat with her through the fear and the bad nights and the mornings she didn't want to get out of bed. I reorganized my entire life around hers, and I did it without resentment, because she was my mother and I loved her and someone had to. The cancer went into remission after 14 months. I should have felt relief. And I did, for a little while. But what I mostly felt was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. And then, 2 years later, it came back. This time it was stage 4. I remember the oncologist's face when she told us. The careful, practiced neutrality that I recognized from my own work. The way you learn to deliver words that detonate like grenades while keeping your voice completely level. My mother squeezed my hand so hard I felt the bones shift. I squeezed back. I didn't cry until I was in my car in the parking garage, and then I couldn't stop. I called Daniel from that parking garage. It went to voicemail. I called Vanessa. She answered on the 4th ring. Stage 4, I said. They're saying we're looking at maybe 18 months to 2 years with treatment, possibly less. There was a long pause. Oh my God, she said. That's okay. Okay. I'm going to look at flights. She didn't look at flights. Or if she did, she decided the prices weren't worth it because she didn't come. Not that week, not that month. She sent a long text message full of heart emojis and told me to keep her updated. Daniel called back 3 days later. He said it was really hard to hear and he was going to try to come by more. He came by once, 2 weeks after that, stayed for 45 minutes, and spent most of it on his phone. So again, it was just me. For the next year and a half, I worked my shifts and then I went to my mother's house. I learned which medications made her nauseous and which ones helped. I learned to recognize the particular exhaustion that came after radiation, different from the exhaustion after chemo, different again from just a bad night. I hired a part-time aide for the hours I couldn't be there, and I paid for it out of my own pocket, because when I asked Daniel to split the cost, he said things were tight right now. His boat was in the shop, I think. Through all of this, my mother and I talked. Really talked. The way we hadn't since I was a teenager. She told me things about her life I had never known, her own dreams before she became a mother, a trip she'd taken to Italy at 22, a version of herself that existed before us. I told her about Seattle, about the life I'd set aside, about the fact that I didn't regret it, not once. She listened to everything I said with those tired, careful eyes, and one evening in October she took my hand and said, "You know I see it, don't you? Everything you've given up, I see all of it." I told her she didn't owe me anything. She just looked at me and said, "I know I don't." She passed away on a Tuesday morning in March. I was there. I had slept in the chair beside her bed the night before because her breathing had changed in a way I recognized. I held her hand when she went. The room was quiet and gray with early light, and I sat there for a long time afterward because I didn't know what to do with a world that didn't have her in it. I called Daniel. I called Vanessa. I called the funeral home. I handled everything the way I always had because that was just the shape of my life. The funeral was on a Friday. Vanessa flew in on Thursday night. She hugged me at baggage claim and cried, and I held her, and I was kind because she had lost her mother too. And grief is grief regardless of what you did or didn't do to deserve its presence. Daniel came to the funeral home Friday morning looking uncomfortable in a suit he'd clearly just bought. He kept checking his phone. My mother's lawyer, a quiet man named Gerald Marsh who had handled her affairs for over a decade, contacted me the following Monday. He asked me to come in at my earliest convenience. I assumed it was paperwork, estate things. I put on clean clothes and drove to his office downtown, and I sat across from him at a wide mahogany desk, and he folded his hands and looked at me in a way that made me very still. "Your mother updated her will approximately 3 years ago," he said. "She was very clear in her instructions and very deliberate in her reasoning. She asked me to record a video statement at the time of signing, which she requested be shared with the family when the will entered probate." He slid a manila envelope across the desk. "You are the sole beneficiary of her estate," he said. "That includes the family home on Clearwater Drive, her savings, and a separate investment account she established in 2019. The total value is approximately $840,000. I heard the words. I understood them individually. But sitting there in that chair, in that quiet office, I felt nothing like what you might expect. I didn't feel victorious. I felt the particular hollowness of someone who would give back every dollar to have her mother sit across from her one more time. I thanked him. I took the envelope. I drove home and sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment building for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. I told no one. I want to be clear about that because it matters. I did not call Daniel. I did not text Vanessa. I said nothing to extended family. To my Aunt Carol, who always asked too many questions. To my cousin Beth, who posted everything on Facebook. I went back to work on Wednesday, and I took care of my patients, and I came home, and I ate dinner alone, and I let the silence settle around me like something I had earned. It lasted 11 days. I still don't know exactly how they found out. My best guess is Gerald Marsh's paralegal mentioned it to someone who mentioned it to someone else. The way information always travels in families even when you're trying to hold it still. What I know is that on a Thursday evening Daniel called me. "So," he said, "I heard about Mom's estate." I waited. "I just think," he said, "that we should talk about this as a family. Because obviously that's a significant amount of money, and I don't think Mom would have wanted." "What?" I said. "Do you think Mom would have wanted?" There was a pause. "I just think she would have wanted things to be fair, between the three of us." I let the silence stretch long enough to be uncomfortable. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. Vanessa called the next morning. Her approach was different. Softer, wrapped in a language of grief and family and togetherness. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking about Mom and about how important it was for the three of them to stay connected. She said she knew it had been hard for all of them. She said she was sure Mom hadn't really thought through the implications of leaving everything to one person. "She updated the will 3 years ago," I said, with a video statement explaining her reasoning. "She thought it through." The softness in Vanessa's voice went somewhere else. "I think we should get together and talk about this," she said. "The three of us." "I'll think about it," I said. "Take care of yourself." Over the next 2 weeks, the calls escalated. Daniel called twice more, then enlisted our Aunt Carol, who left me a voicemail about family legacy and our mother's wishes, and how she just couldn't believe my mother would have meant to cause this kind of division. Vanessa texted almost daily, long messages that shifted from emotional to pointed to something that started to feel like pressure I wasn't supposed to name. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 4 years sent me a Facebook message about fairness. I read everything. I responded to nothing. I will be honest with you, there was a part of me that wavered. Not because I thought they were right, but because I was 31 years old and I had just lost my mother, and I was tired in a way that I couldn't fully explain to anyone, and there is something in a person that just wants it to stop, that will consider paying almost any price for the noise to go quiet. I talked to a therapist. I talked to my closest friend from nursing school, a woman named Diane who had watched all of this happen in real time for years. She listened to everything and then she said something that I've thought about almost every day since. "You didn't take anything from them," she said. "You just stopped letting them take from you." I made the decision the next morning. I called Gerald Marsh and told him I was ready to move forward with probate as written. I asked him to be available if the family contested. He told me my mother had anticipated exactly that possibility, which was why she had recorded the video statement and why she had documented in writing her reasons for the distribution of her estate. She was very thorough, he said, in the tone of a man who had seen a great deal of human behavior and had learned to appreciate when someone planned ahead. The family meeting, when it finally happened, was not something I agreed to. It was something that happened to me. Daniel showed up at my apartment one Saturday morning with Vanessa, who had flown back from Phoenix, and my Aunt Carol, who apparently came for moral support. I opened my door and found the three of them standing in my hallway looking like a committee. I let them in. I made coffee because I was raised with manners. Daniel did most of the talking. He had clearly prepared. He talked about fairness and family unity and the emotional toll of losing their mother, and how he was completely sure, that my mother hadn't understood what she was really doing. He said it would destroy the family if we let money come between us. He said he was willing to take a smaller share than the official thirds, just to be reasonable because this was about family and not money. I let him finish. I went to my bedroom and came back with my laptop. Mom recorded a video statement, I said. Gerald Marsh played it for me. But she also, I paused, because I was still learning to say this without my voice breaking. She also recorded a personal one. For me. She made it about a month before she died. I turned the laptop to face them and pressed play. My mother's face filled the screen. She looked tired, the particular bone-deep tired of someone who knows what is coming, but her eyes were clear and her voice was steady. She looked directly into the camera with an expression I recognized, the one she made when she had decided something and wasn't going to be moved. She talked for 11 minutes. She talked about what the previous 6 years had looked like. She was specific. Dates, appointments, the names of medications, the number of nights I had spent in a chair beside her hospital bed. She talked about the phone calls I had made and the ones that had not been returned. She talked about money she had asked for and help she had asked for, and the silence that had answered her. She was not cruel. She didn't raise her voice. She was simply, absolutely precise. Then she looked at the camera and said, "I love all three of my children." But love is also a verb. Rachel showed up. She showed up every single time, for years at real cost to herself. I've thought about this carefully, and I believe honoring that is the right thing to do. If you're watching this and you disagree with my decision, I understand. But I need you to know that I made it with a clear mind, a full heart, and complete awareness of what I was doing. I closed the laptop. Aunt Carol was crying. Vanessa was very still. Daniel looked at the wall across from him for a long moment, then looked at his hands. No one said anything for almost a full minute. Then Daniel said quietly, "She really kept track of all of that." "She did," I said. "Vanessa left first. She hugged me at the door, briefly, and I felt how much was unfinished between us, and how long it would probably stay that way." Daniel shook his head when he stood to leave, not in anger exactly, more like someone finally understanding a math problem that had confused them for years. Aunt Carol patted my arm and said she was sorry for her part in it. I closed the door behind them and stood in my quiet apartment for a long time. In the months that followed, I made my decisions slowly and deliberately. I sold the house on Clearwater Drive. I could not live there. I had thought I might want to. But I walked through it alone one afternoon, and the weight of absence was too much. I gave myself permission to let it go. I paid off my student loans, which I had been carrying since nursing school. I set up a fund for a mentorship program at Mercy General. My mother had always said that the most important thing you can give someone is time and attention, and I wanted to honor that in a way she would recognize. I took the trip to Italy she had told me about, the one she'd made at 22, the one she'd always said she wanted to do again someday. I stood in a piazza in Florence on an October afternoon and ate the best pasta I've ever had in my life and let myself cry in public, which I never do. And a woman at the next table handed me a napkin without asking any questions, which felt like grace. I still work at Mercy General. I still hold the hands of people who are frightened, and I still smile through my own exhaustion, because that is who I am, and I have made my peace with it. The difference is that now I come home to a life I chose, a life with space in it that I guard carefully, and I understand, finally, fully, that choosing yourself is not the same as abandoning the people you love. My mother knew that before I did. She wrote it down so there would be no confusion. I carry that with me everywhere I go. If you are giving everything to people who treat your sacrifice like a minimum requirement, please hear me. You are not obligated to keep shrinking. You are not obligated to fund the lives of people who didn't show up when it counted. The family you are born into is not always the family that deserves you. My mother saw me. She saw all of it, every quiet, impossible year. That meant more than any number in any account. But I won't pretend the number didn't matter too. Not because of what it bought me, but because of what it said. It said, I was here. It said, I noticed. It said, this is what love looks like when it runs all the way down to the foundation. If you have someone like that in your life, tell them now. Don't wait for a video in a lawyer's office. Don't wait until the room is quiet and gray and morning light and it is too late to say anything at all. Go tell them now. And if you're the one who has been showing up, year after year, shift after shift, chair after chair, I want you to know that someone sees it. Even if they never say so, even if they are tired and sick and running out of time, they see it. My mother did. If this story reached something in you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've been carrying something like this alone, you don't have to keep carrying it by yourself.